fewer young people than ever are engaging in what we sometimes affectionately refer to as hanky-panky. And there's a woman who's taken a close look at this and has some thoughts on the subject. She is Mary Rooke. She does commentary and analysis for the Daily Caller, and she's a mother of 4. Mary, great to have you with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Vince, for having me.
Now, you did dig into the data here, and this is something that I've been trying to talk about for a while. It's amazing, all this talk about abortion. Before we even get there, nobody's actually getting pregnant anymore. What's happening?
I know it feels like there's this real disconnect in what we should be focusing on and what we're not focusing on. We have an issue where it's not even just that, they're not having sex anymore. These kids are not even getting together in real life, period. They're not making like friendship connections. The same studies that are showing kids are, kind of rebelling against our hypersexual nature or hypersexual society are the same ones that are reporting 41% of students or kids reported that they were not getting together as teenagers, like not going out and playing catch the flag, not taking their bikes and riding them around, not kind of getting into those innocent, adventurous moments as teenagers. So it's no wonder that if they can't even take that little risk or that little adventure, they're not going to be going out and forming like loving or sexual relationships with one another.
That's wild. I remember being a kid, and one of the things that my mother told me was, you're not just going places to hang out. That was one of her rules. Like, you can go, but you've got to have a mission. There's got to be something you and your friends are doing. You're not just going to hang out, because that's where trouble starts, when people are just hanging out at the mall. Nowadays, it's like, hey, get outside of the house. Go do something. Why are you still here?
Yeah, exactly. It's not even just that they're not going out anywhere. If they do end up going out, the playtime or like the supervision is so structured. You are going to a baseball practice, or you are going to a football game, or you are going to do something where every minute of your time out is supervised for adults. And I truly believe that there is a value in having kids learn mistakes while they're in the home, and being able to give them just enough independence to be able to learn about what their peers are like and how to interact with them without the supervision of someone saying, no, you shouldn't do that. Because the anxiety I think that this generation is feeling is that anxiety of, constantly having someone watch them. So it's no wonder they enjoy or would rather be in their room behind a computer screen, gaming or watching porn, than being out with actual people. Like the worrying eyes are looking at you, kind of thing.
Interesting. Well, it is true. I mean, independence helps steel you for the real world. It prepares you, right? It gives you street smarts. If you having to engage in dynamic situations on your own is really important for a kid. And the less a kid does that, the more vulnerable they become as an adult, because then they don't actually know how to navigate any of that.
Yeah, exactly. It was really funny. Axios put out this piece, dating apps are on the rocks with Wall Street, and it was kind of praising the fact that Zoomers, it turns out, like meeting in real life. And it's like, Axios, you're missing the entire point. These kids aren't getting together. So Bumble's useless to them. Like, these apps are useless to them. Why would they need an app that's going to connect them with someone in real life? They're never going to go out of the house.
So, for years, it felt like that the way this conversation was going was like the polar opposite of the way it's going now, which was that you kind of had conservative Christians especially urging people to resist the temptation of sexual relationships with people outside of marriage, and especially young people. There was all this concern about teen pregnancy and the difficulty that presented for a young person who's not ready yet for children. In fact, there was a lot of credit given through the years. You remember that old MTV show, 16 and Pregnant? I don't know if they still make it, but
yeah,
it was the idea was there was this belief that certainly took hold all over the place that, teen pregnancies are going down because everyone's being scared senseless by 16 and Pregnant. They're seeing this show and thinking, oh my goodness, I should be careful not to get pregnant, because then you could have this big obligation that many teenagers are not ready for. How did the conversation change so much? And do you think that actually was the reason teen pregnancies declined so much?
Well, I think that you can credit it, of course. But I think that what it actually did was harmed teens and young adults' views on relationships and what they are really like. So the only relationships that you're seeing now are the ones being portrayed in entertainment. And if you're watching this teen girl get disrespected by her teen father, and then
Yes.
the parents say, leave him, then those are the life lessons you're taking with you, like that this is how all marriage, or these are how all relationships are going to be. So it doesn't just scare you off from teen pregnancy, but it's clearly scaring kids off from just dating in general.
That's such a smart point. I hadn't contemplated that it warned people against children entirely, and it scared them off
Oh,
of
yeah.
what is truly one of life's greatest gifts.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And it's not just shows like 16 and Pregnant, but you had like Jersey Shore, where you had the Peter Pan syndrome, on steroids, where every single person on there, you're watching it and you're thinking these people must not be older than 21, 22 years old, because that's how young and dumb you have to be on something like that. But no,
Right.
these people were like, 28, 29, 30. And when you realize that, you realize how sad media like that is, because it's portraying this life like never ending selfishness is the way that we need to be going. And all of these kids are going, okay, yeah, this sounds good. We'll do that. No kids. And I'll just live my life for me.
How much of all of this is connected to the arrival of the iPhone?
Oh, I mean, how could you not connect this to the right? You have every single thing at your fingertips on the easiest operating system known to man. You'd have to be really, really down on your dumb luck to not be able to turn on an iPhone and figure out the internet and search anything you would want to see. So I think whenever you are giving kids younger and younger access to unlimited information, you cannot be shocked when the bad stuff leaks in and it confuses their entire worldview. There's a reason why kids don't leave the home till later. The parents have to have a lasting impression on the way that they grow up and the way they view life, and not just with love and finances, but with everything. How do you deal with someone who's cut you off on the road? How do you deal with someone who's cut you in line? How do you deal with, the great triumphs in life? When you see your parents deal with issues and they kind of key you in on their decision-making skills, it helps pass that down. And I think that when you have an iPhone, it disrupts the connection between, the parent as the teacher and the child as the learner.
Yeah, I've said for a while, Mary Rooke, that what I worry about with the devices in particular, and certainly sort of broad access to the internet for kids, unfiltered access to everything, is that in the end, what you're allowing is strangers to raise your children. It used to be that we'd warn against stranger danger and trying to protect our kids from the enemies outside of our house, grabbing them at the playground or something. But now what's happening is they're grabbing them from within your own home. So now you have strangers who are more influential in your child's life than you are, who are very cynical, who are toxic, who affirm. We use the phrase affirm, but basically they encourage some of the worst demons that could form in a child and severely damage them for the rest of their lives. And I don't think I'm overstating it.
I don't think you are either. I've seen this in my own life. Like, we are at a point in our lives where our daughters are getting to the age that everybody is starting to get phones. And we are definitely one of those parents that say, absolutely not, you're not getting one. And our kids are fine with that. I think because they've been able to watch their friends go through the transition, is what we like to call it in our family. You get your phone and you're normal, and then you see them 6 months later and they're completely different. Like, we just moved from one city to another, and we went back to see our old friends, and the kids all got together. And one of our friends has a phone now, and my daughter came home and she was distraught. She could not believe how much her friend had changed in such a short amount of time. And it wasn't even the phone as much as it was allowing the social media on there, because this same child had contact, through text messaging and stuff with other people, but it was specifically the social media that takes them and warps the way they not only just view themselves, but the way they view their peers, the way they view their teachers, how they view learning. All of these things, the algorithm is teaching them about life as opposed to their parents.
So we started this conversation on, basically intimacy has disappeared among young people. Mm-hmm. And that's true, by the way, I think of a lot of generations now, but especially the youngest ones. Why is it that people prefer isolation to human contact?
I don't know that it's that they prefer it. I think that it's more like they've been conditioned to fear human contact. Like, if you've ever kind of watched a comedy special or anything about Gen Z young adults now, it's like they're afraid to, even open the door for Grubhub to drop their food off, or they're afraid to talk to anyone in the Uber. And this guy gives me the ick because he walked up to me and actually talked to me face to face. It's never like all these people are doing normal human activities that in any other generation, they're like, how is this stressing you out? But for whatever reason, this generation has been conditioned. And I think it's from, if you look at the the Survey Center on America that just came out, they talked about how Generation Z is the first generation to experience like the largest amount of dinners away from the family table. So like 78% of boomers said that they ate dinner with their whole family together every single night of the week.
Huh.
And Gen Z is reporting that they are only eating dinner maybe one night a week together as a family. And I think the simple things like that, coming back together, I talked about this on my podcast today, where if you are sitting down at the table together as a family, you have that chance to be able to look at the emotional connectedness that your child has. You're asking them a question and you can physically see how they're responding to it. And that tells you whether or not they're telling you the truth about it. Then you can ask them more questions about their day, find out what's going on with their friends, find out what's going on at school that you don't know about. All of these moments happen around the dinner table. And without it, all of a sudden dinner becomes another chore. It becomes another to-do list, something that you check off. And of course, I'm always, I can be guilty of this same scenario, but my husband and I made it a point when we were younger and we had only one child that we ate dinner together every single night.
Yes.
And now we do that as much as we can. And most of the time it's 7 nights a week. Like it is only when my husband's out of town for work do we not eat together as a family around the table.
That's so important. Get together as a family and raise your children for real. That's where the critical conversations happen. One other piece that I can't help but think of is the ease with which everything happens in our lives now. You mentioned the Grubhub. We can basically achieve, and at least in the United States, and if you've got the means, you definitely can do it. You can achieve complete comfort almost at all times. Whether it's through medication or apps or anything. It's like everything's easy. And it's gotten to the point that I think everyone's been conditioned to think that dating is supposed to be that way too. That dating is supposed to be an algorithm will deliver me the perfect person and everything else I'll just ignore. And whereas dating, what it used to be prior to all these apps, was one of the more complicated negotiations you'll ever engage in your life, right? It's not like a business negotiation where you can lay it all out on the table. There's the spoken, there's the unspoken. There's what conversations they're having with their friends behind your back as you're beginning this courtship, and on and on and on again. But it seems that what we've done is we've warped even that pageantry, even that sort of that entire play in a person's life into something that should be as easy as swiping right.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, leave it to us to complicate the most simple thing in life, to be honest, because if you think about our grandparents or our parents getting together, it was when they were teens.
Yes.
And they were going out and they were meeting when they were young. And I tell my girls this all the time. The best time for you to get your heart broken is now. Whenever you have the comfort and safety to come home to me and we can work this out and I can help you out. There's nothing worse than being a single adult and having to go through heartbreak. And I think that what our society has done has kind of given every single person the ability to put a needle of fentanyl in their arm and kind of check out of the real life of dating. Dating's hard, marriage is hard, all of those things are hard, but when you work at it, it's beautiful and lovely and fun.
And worthwhile.
And it's all the things that and worthwhile. And honestly, the best thing that you can do with your life is get married. And the best thing that you can do with your life is to pursue love. And
the things you're most satisfied by are the things you work the hardest for. That's true in the case of love and marriage and children. Finally, as you were describing that, what our grandparents did, I was also thinking about how how many of us have a story where a grandparent said, well, grandpa proposed 7 times before grandma finally said yes, right? Like, you've heard a version
Right.
of this story somewhere, if it's not in your own family. Nowadays, I'm pretty sure Grandpa would be in prison if he was held to Gen Z standards.
I know my grandfather would be in prison if he was held to Gen Z standards because my grandmother lied about her age and they eloped to a different state in order for them to get married. So my grandfather was 18 and my grandmother was 16, and they were
Scandal.
married until my. I know it was on it when the way he talked about it too when he was still alive. He always had this smirk on his face when he did it, and my grandmother would peek in and be like, "Now, Jimmy, you be careful now." Like kind of leave the room, give him a little, slap or whatever. But no, they were just two madly in love kids that wanted to get married before she turned 18 and tried to find a way. And that is the type of adventure and love that people should be searching for. And now we're telling, it's no wonder, like we're telling all of these men, don't come up, don't approach, don't do these things. My grandfather would have had the hardest time living in this age. I'm glad that he didn't have to because, man, it would have been tough.
It's amazing. Well, Mary Rooke, the podcast, you heard her mention that earlier. The podcast is Tradish with Mary Rooke, Tradish, TRAD-ISH, Tradish with Mary Rooke. And she writes for the Daily Caller as well, where I'm also an editor. Mary, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time in this great conversation today.